Who is the most hated person in your workplace and why? My office has the classic argue about anything guy. I mentioned once that I had recently rewatched the movie Equilibrium. This guy butted in and announced that the movie actually sucks. Spent about 10 minutes saying the effects were lame, the costumes were lame, futuristic movies are so overdone, obviously not knowing this movie came out 15 years ago, then ends it by saying I haven't actually seen it, I'm just saying. This election season has been a nightmare. Guy went out of his way to try to find out who everyone was voting for, and if someone wouldn't tell him, he'd make an educated guess, and then argue and question their voting choice that he himself decided. He vehemently debated the result of the election and ended up exposing that he in fact had no idea what the Electoral College does and also had never even heard the term gerrymandering. Not something I would expect everyone to be knowledgeable on, but probably don't start a massive office fight if you don't know the basics of the argument. Also mentioned that LGBT rights aren't that big of a deal to an LGBT office member. The best moment had to be when one co-worker decided to mess with him and posted a warning about the dangers of dihydrogen monoxide. The co-worker told this guy that illegalizing this dangerous chemical was important. Dihydrogen monoxide can suffocate people, is found in acid rain, etc. Guy totally agreed and said Trump would handle it. Remembered something else. A co-worker and I were talking about Star Wars and how technically you wouldn't hear the ship's explosions, lasers, etc. BC it's outer space, but who cares, BC it's awesome. Guy listens in and challenges us, saying of course you would hear them. Tried to explain that there's no sound in space, but he didn't want to hear it. He was like, well, what if there was an explosion? Me, it would be silent. Him, but what if the sun exploded? Me, it would be silent. In space, there is nothing for the sound to vibrate off of. Him, I'm pretty sure you could hear the sun exploding. The co-worker told this guy that illegalizing this dangerous chemical was important. Dihydrogen monoxide can suffocate people, is found in acid rain, etc. In a twist, he knows exactly what it is an alien, and water is his weakness. Everyone in my workplace is fantastic. I work with nothing but professionals and management is the way it should be. The guy on the other side of my cube wall chews with his mouth open, loudly, and frequently. He is the most hated, by me. Apparently I'm the butthole in my office because I called out the guy chewing with his mouth open. That girl who loves to talk at people, and loves to teach people things in a very matter-of-fact way, also, sensitive, complained that I don't like to talk to her. Without being too specific, I used to work at an insurance company. My co-worker killed her daughter and then tried to kill herself, but failed. I felt bad for her estranged husband. He was taking the daughter to Disney and the mom killed her the night before. Gary eats a whole rotisserie chicken with his hands every Wednesday. Kelly doesn't work very hard. Cheryl killed her daughter. Tom microwaves fish. Not a specific person so much as a group of them, but in the factory world it is generally the temps. They are always an interesting group of characters. Our current batch includes a quiet dude who is a good worker and decent overall, but quietly sings and mumbles to himself and always has a vacant, dead look in his eye. No one hates him. He's just kinda spooky. A girl with a wonky eye who openly tells people she's on dope and doesn't have custody of any of her kids and randomly interjects personal questions while you're working with her. Always on her phone, against factory policy, and wanders away into the bathroom for long periods of time. A passive-aggressive terror of a lady who's catty towards all the other girls, then plays dumb and cock-teases guys into doing her work for her. Honorable mentions who were shit-canned. Wolverine, a middle-aged balding guy who wore button-downs with torn-off sleeves, with the top buttons open to expose his manly chest hair. A total perv who hit on 18-year-old me constantly and then called me a yes. Would touch the operator's machine settings, which is grounds for a shanking. Some 20-something kid who was being let out of prison to work. He wore this shirt that said "Cool story babe, make me a sandwich every freaking night." He never shut up. Claimed he had his own business and would tell stories about how he ended up producing 7 children by different women while still currently married to the first one. A quiet dude who is a good worker and decent overall, but quietly sings and mumbles to himself and always has a vacant, dead look in his eye. R/2 Miral for Miral. This was an old job but this lady's name was literally Mina. She was a shift supervisor and screamed at everyone, yelled when she talked, put people on assignments they were not the best at in order to intentionally humiliate them when they were not perfect, and didn't allow grown adults to leave when they were done with their work at the time they were scheduled to leave. She hated me and other co-workers who were working that job and attending college at the same time. Who knows why? Jealousy? She had to check every area before anyone could go home, and if one person had to fix their stuff, everyone had to wait. We worked in the basement of a county facility and it was like walking into a Dickensian orphanage every day. She had informants who would report back anything negative said about her so no one could report her to HR without it getting back to her within minutes. One unfortunate single mom basically got her life threatened when she reported the abusive language Mina used on a daily basis. She must have been the absolute saddest person in the world because she was the most awful bully I've ever worked with or for. I can't imagine her life outside of work was anything less than god awful because she took out that misery on everyone at work. Ours is our boss. She's out on maternity leave, so he's moved to sit with us to help out the interim manager. Coincidentally enough, he was able to get a desk right by the CEO's office, right by us, and sucks up to him at every opportunity. The guy gets onto us within 20 seconds or so of any frivolous conversation, sends emails asking us to not talk so much when he literally could have turned and said as much, and has just sucked every bit of joy out of the job, and we're convinced he's gonna stay down here when our manager gets back. I'm going to quit. I'm an electrician construction worker and this story is about a special snowflake named Jimmy, or Backpack, or Blister, or Two Stroke. I'll explain the nicknames to give you an idea about this guy. Backpack and Blister came to be because the guy is a master at doing something so slow and so badly that you can't help but do whatever his job is yourself. Backpack because I carry his butt all day, and Blister because he shows up after the work's done. The story behind Two Stroke is that he constantly puts the wrong type of fuel into a machine. The gas compactor that he had been using for 2 weeks in a row, yeah, he put in diesel. The weed whacker that takes mixed like it says on the cap, yeah, diesel too. I get not knowing and asking, but this fuckwood had been working with these machines for days and had already refueled them. Also, I know diesel would have been a more appropriate nickname, but it sounded too cool. Hopefully he gets fired before he does something to hurt or kill someone. Also, I know Diesel would have been a more appropriate nickname, but it sounded too cool. I appreciate this logic. Don't work there anymore, but used to have this dude working with me as an adventure instructor and he totally zoned out every so many minutes. Total danger to himself and customers. Also, he didn't say a lot, but when he did it made no sense and usually was inappropriate. I work in a shop. This guy across from me, when he gets any project that is slightly inconvenient and isn't easy, he screams as loud as he can. God damn it, fricking see, come on. He smokes at least a pack of Camels a day, complained loudly that they recently asked him to smoke outside and he rarely cleans up his area. He drives a Hummer H3 with Bachelor on the back of it. Yes, it's spelled like that, incorrectly, and has another decal that says frick your sports mascot. When his B of a wife calls him, they argue with each other and he always has his phone on speakerphone so the rest of the techs can hear their conversation in detail. He doesn't wear hearing protection, so probably deaf. He's just an intentional butthole. He loves people often saying crap to get a response from bystanders. The trolls of meat space. So, just from today, this butthole showed up 4 hours late because he overslept. He started a 1,000 word piece he had to write at 2 and only has 114 words in the document currently. A few hours in, he went into the back room and just chilled on Reddit for an hour. He has 8 things on his to-do list and he's barely started the first one. This is a normal occurrence at least once or twice a week, and then he scrambles on the other days to try and catch up so he can slack off later. He always makes his deadlines, but the non-deadline items can be put off for months. I'd fire him, but I'm self-employed and I need the money. I was relating to this far too much. Glad about that ending. I'm the second shift supervisor and I think the person most hated is the older guy on my shift. He's gruff, retired army, conservative, Luddite, takes no bulls, and always saying everyone is smoking that dope. But I like him because he actually cares about doing the job well and performing up to client expectations. There is one thing that most of my coworkers don't see is that whenever he is on the phone with his wife he is so sweet you could get diabetes. He also speaks fondly of his kids and grandkids. I must tell you all about this magnificent bastard with whom I work. For starters, just the sound of his voice is exhausting to hear. It is a combination of Walter Matthau, Edward G. Robinson, and Norm Macdonald. Top that with a Midwestern accent and the fact that he mumbles all the time and you've got a recipe for super annoyance. But I'm not one to hate a mother just because of the way he talks, so I'll move on to the stupid crap that comes out of his mouth when he does open it. Everything he says is either astonishingly inappropriate, obscene in nature, or antagonizing. Some of his highlights include talking about how his girlfriend, whose actual existence is speculative, makes his dong as hard as a diamond, asking our customer service personnel, all ladies, if they'd also be getting laid on Valentine's Day, conjecturing that one of the ladies who was suffering from a migraine should get some fricking, repeatedly calling everyone slackers in an attempt at being facetious, because he is still somehow ignorant to the fact that everybody hates him, bragging about being runner-up in a Songwriter of the Year contest that is sponsored by VH1 Save the Music, and an obvious scam, bragging about his previously owned business, which failed because he is an alcoholic, and that's nothing compared to the fricked up crap he drunkenly puts on his Facebook, which isn't private. We are certain he has incriminating evidence against our owner, because a normal business would have fired him, out of a cannon, into the sun. I work in a small office of less than 10 employees. There's an old lady that is the most petty and disagreeable person I've ever met. She has the world's most sensitive nose and she takes any difference in opinion as a personal attack on her existence. Here's a few quick examples. She once called the fire department to investigate a gas leak, although everyone assured her it was just a co-worker's lunch. She invokes the spirit of Ike Turner every time we have an office party, to the point you have to yell at her to leave you alone because you don't want to eat the insert whatever crappy food she ordered. She takes massive dumps daily, leaving the bathroom door open, and she hates air fresheners. Let that sink in. She moves things, asks you where they are, and when you tell her where it was before she moved it, she says no, it's not. It's in such and such place. You then have to either ignore her or get snippy with her to make her leave, or she'll go into a 10-minute explanation of why she moved something no one needs or asked about. Sorry, I needed to vent. She isn't hated. She's dreaded. This is the story of the HP crazy cat lady. So I work in a Best Buy ESQ store, and we have company reps come in to teach us about product. We had this woman from HP. She came in on every other Friday. The moment she walked through the door I knew because my eyes would water. She smelled like she bathed in cat pee. She would have pee stains on her shirt. She was mid-30s and so thick you couldn't tell if she did or didn't have an Adam's apple. One time she had cat crap on her collar rubbing against her neck. I almost vomited. We would be forced over by our managers to talk to this woman. It was bad. We would make jokes to new people about asking her out and trying to sleep with her. One newbie actually did it, and he said he puked on his food, he couldn't take the smell. Fast forward a few months, I get a customer interested in a 75-inch TV, but he won't buy because his cat will knock it over. He also smelled hardcore of cat pee and had cat food in his pocket. He told me he had purchased 3 cats. He had 26 on his property. He was sheltering and feeding them. He was also single. I actually gave him the HP lady's work number. Turns out she had been fined and lost her house and her cats. What we thought was maybe 4 turned out to be 58 cats on her property. 58. She lost her job due to complaints. I have no idea where she is now, but I hope they got married, bought a farm, and have 10,000 cats. It's like 10,000 cats when all you need is a life. The whole time she's worked there she has been super physical with everyone. Hands literally down pants. Telling guys she wished she had a boyfriend because she just loves giving blowjobs, etc. Suddenly she decided to try to sue the restaurant for gender-based harassment. On top of that she complains about everything and doesn't do any work. Even her friends that got her hired can't stand her and hate working with her. We all feel like we're being held hostage every day by this maniac. She's the worst. Any guy that didn't complain about her gender-based harassment immediately is the reason she was able to pull the card later. Probably me. I have to leave constantly because my toddler keeps having asthma attacks. I used to work with a lady that nobody liked because she was always leaving for her chronically ill kid, and she didn't really have sitter options for when he was too sick for school. Now I'm that lady that has the chronically ill child without reliable childcare options when he can't go to daycare. I know it's not my workplace's problem and I don't blame them if they're frustrated. So I'm just kinda hoping that he'll grow out of this before they get beyond fed up and fire me. What would help you greatly with your co-workers is that you acknowledge the problem and thank your co-workers for picking up the slack. Sometimes a chronically ill kid can't be avoided, but acknowledging your co-workers' frustrations can put them at ease. I used to work in a factory with a guy who claimed he was a combat marine that served overseas. He also claimed he was head of his unit. He would always go around saying grunt and high speed and would always tell stories about his deployment. His big claim was that he got shot in the butt, saving a couple guys' lives. His story changed every time he told it. One time he was carrying guys out of fire and got shot himself. Another time it was he dragged guys out of fire and got shot himself. And so on and so on. He told us so many stories of different scenarios that he was in. Turns out his ex-wife's current husband works at the same factory but on the complete opposite side. According to the ex-wife, Forrest Gump has never been deployed and he got shot by friendly fire on base in the States. I'm not sure whose side is true or not, but I think you understand how everyone felt after we heard that. My brother-in-law and several friends have served overseas and they don't say a word about it. We have a guy who no calls no shows a couple times a month. Also just decides to show up hours after the start of the day. I work in IT and my boss won't fire him for some reason. Sounds like flexibility around a health issue to me. Hopefully, would explain the lack of explanation from management. I work twice a week under the table for a 90-year-old woman as a home health aide. Love the woman as I do my own grandmother. I work first and second shift as needed and we'll call her Sarah. She worked third. She had the general stuff going on, arriving late, not getting her job done on time, etc. She once went weeks without speaking to me because I refused to come in a whole hour early without my boss's permission. If I'd just helped her out, as she put it, I would have been working an hour that she would be paid for. Please. Frick, I look like my boss, still of 90 years old, would come in to pay me and spend 40 or so minutes complaining about Sarah, that she did whatever she wanted, touched things in the house and rearranged stuff. Mind you, the house and all its contents belong to a 90-year-old. If you move her Christmas sweaters, she's going to panic when she goes looking for them. Stupid crap started going missing. Toilet paper, paper towels, food. Sil provides groceries, and it didn't take her long to notice. Sarah's little sisters are moving across the country, so she decides to invite them to come to work with her and sleep for the week before they leave, without boss's consent. Regular first shift worker gets to the house early one morning to two strangers. Boss finds out. She warned Sarah. Second strike. Last chance. I go into work one day and my boss calls and says she'd stopped by and hid my pay, cash, in the china cabinet. I look. Nothing. Guess who was working when she hid it? No proof. Sarah starts to game off. She said. And first shift worker comes crying to me. Sarah told me you told her you think I stole your paycheck. Nice. Cameras are installed. Notes are put up by boss all over the house. Do not touch. There is no reason for you to be in this room. Boss is less tolerant than usual. Boss asks me my opinion. Me being too kind, I tell her give her one more chance. She treats your sister with respect and truly cares for her. Sarah comes in one day out of the blue and ignores every word I say to her. I ask her what her problem is. Silence. Okay, not sure who the frick you think I am, but okay. A month of us coming and going and neither of us saying a word. She texts me out of the blue, IDK what your problem is, but I don't appreciate your attitude. Spreads rumors about me to co-workers. The next time boss asked my opinion, I gave her an honest, full-length answer. Sarah's replacement doesn't show up late or steal, but she's a weirdo. I'm fine with that. TLDR, my now ex-co-worker was a see you next Tuesday. Definitely the subtly xenophobic, homophobic and chauvinist old guy who has poor personal hygiene and slams the door really loud whenever he goes in or out of the office. It doesn't help that he's really grumpy too. That's no way to talk about our new president. I worked at a dollar store as a teen. The manager ran a side business selling some flower button things. She'd spent her entire shift on the company phone running her other business. She told me on the first day, unless someone is walking out with a whole cart of stuff, don't bother me. We, needless to say, had a major shoplifting problem. One older lady who worked there was nuts. She would come into the common restroom after people and wait while they went. She bitched at me because they hired me part-time instead of making her full-time. I apologized and said I didn't know when I applied. She also bitched at me for not waiting with my umbrella to walk out with her 2 hours after my shift ended. The homophobic remarks were unbearably frequent after my so dropped me off for work one time. The manager couldn't be bothered to intervene. The last straw was when a woman came in with her kid to buy some cat food, threw a fit, chucked boxes of product to the floor, attacked an employee, knocked her own kid into a shelf, etc. because she couldn't find it, punched her kid when he found the cat food, and then tried to walk out with a basket full of cat food and Snickers. I tried to call the cops. The manager was on the phone. You could only have one outgoing call at a time, so I couldn't. She bitched at me for interrupting her call and told me to mind my own business because the lady wasn't a big deal. I took off my name tag and walked out. The crazy co-worker chased me to my car to tell me off for not giving notice, and now she'd have to cover my shift. I looked at her and said, I thought you wanted me to quit so you'd have more hours. She talks too much. She does too much. She thinks she's in charge. She behaves like a child. She takes everything personally. She doesn't understand common sense. She talks about disturbing things all the time. She has this constant need to feel validated and appreciated. She says the wrong things. She sounds like a 4-year-old. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.